And good morning, morning, one and all. Yes, welcome one and all to the unfortunate this morning. It is the Good Morning Walk, but we are having the Good Morning Walk inside today. Pretty much, unfortunately, for the reason, not only is it going to be raining, but it is also reported to start thunder and lightning in a bit. We're going to have some severe thunderstorms. So quite frankly, I didn't want to be walking around in a field holding up my phone like this, just going, come on, thunder, come and get me. So unfortunately, no Good Morning Walk out in the open today. It's a Good Morning Walk indoors, but like I say, this is why I specifically set up the studio, because just in case we do ever end up with like I say, days like today, I can still do a broadcast to you, even if it is indoors. And like I say, to be honest, I am missing, like I say, having my nice, walkabout in the field. But yes, thank you. Thank you all again for joining me today. Like I say, a bit different today, but like I say, that's not going to become the normal. Like I say, we will get out there, of course, when we can. Oh, a question from Mitch. What's the origin of your name? Is it related to Charlie Chaplin? Well, it again all goes back to my my granddad. My granddad was quite a big, he was a big Chaplin fan, but also a Laurel and Hardy fan. So I grew up when I was really young watching Laurel and Hardy and Charlie Chaplin films. So I've always been one for bowler hats and even wearing a bowler hat. So hold on. There you go. Since it's since we are shall we say, not outdoors today, I'll make a special exception today and actually wear my bowler hat today. So, like I say, greetings, one and all. I know you're probably expecting me out to be in a field today, but not only is it raining, and those of you who've watched the morning walk before know that, yes, I am mad enough to go out walking in the rain, but I am not mad enough to go out when we are expecting thunder and lightning storms as well, because like I say, me walking around with my phone held out is pretty much like, daring the thunder to come and strike me. So yeah, like I say, unfortunately today, the Good Morning Walk is coming to you indoors. Like I say, can't control the weather. It sucks, but that's how it works, unfortunately, today. So, oh wow, thank you. Thank you very much, Mitch, for the ball. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the support there. Yeah, thank you so much for that. But yes, I know often this is meant to be the Good Morning Walk, and don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. The win, obviously, as you can see on screen, the win in Batley and Spen is good. Don't get me wrong. I am happy I am happy that we won. I am extremely happy that we won and that we held on to this seat. My biggest problem, of course, is how narrow. This is how narrow this win was. So this wasn't a comfortable win. And this wasn't it's not a pleasant win either. It's super narrow. Like I say, there was 300 votes in it. You literally had 300 votes in it. That's how close this by-election was. So, like I say, it was close and it was a nail-biter to a point where even the Conservatives were asking for a recount and asking for bundles, meaning they were asking not only for a complete recount of every single vote, but also they wanted specific voting areas to be recounted. So it was close. So and very often in our politics, elections this close normally don't happen. So it's so close for this to happen. And I said that we would obviously be discussing what happens to Starmer now, and we will be discussing that in a bit. But we also have to discuss Kim Ledbetter, who, of course, as many of you know, is Jo Cox's sister. For those of you who don't know who Jo Cox is, she was an MP for Batley and Spen, who was murdered by a white supremacist while out campaigning to remain in the European Union. So I, first of all, I generally have to congratulate her, because it must not be easy, standing in your, former sister's constituency, not only considering what happened to her. I have to congratulate her for bravery in doing that. And I'm glad that, she did stand up and do that. But as I said just a few weeks ago, there were going to be significant problems with anyone who was anti-Labour, who was basically an enemy of Labour. We'll get on to, shall we say, the fly in the ointment, as you can see on the screen in a bit. And the enemies are going to be saying, well, the only reason that they won was because they had Jo Cox's sister. That is not a good look. And unfortunately, because it was so close, they will be able to get away with saying that. Now, the other version of this is that if Labour had lost, the enemies, shall we say, of Labour, both in and outside of the party, would turn around and immediately turn around and say, look at Labour, they can't even win when they've got Jo Cox's sister standing for them. That was the unfortunate position of deciding to run Kim Ledbetter. Now, I understand her reasonings for that. Again, I'm glad she did. It shows someone who is incredibly brave of character for doing what she did. But optics-wise, it gives the Conservatives ammunition to basically come out and say, there is a very significant portion of them to go, you only won because you had Jo Cox's sister. And that will be the excuse, shall we say, that the Conservatives roll out and say that's the only reason we lost. But on the other hand, this is a good victory. This is an incredibly good victory for Labour. Like I say, this is the Good Morning Walk, and I am not one to do it down. It is an incredibly good victory for Labour. I'm really happy that Labour won, but it was close. And you can probably see the reason why coming in third place. That is, of course, George Galloway with his Workers' Party. And for those of you who don't know who George Galloway was, he was a former Labour MP who got booted out during the Blair years for impropriety. He now makes a living essentially being a reporter for Russia Today, as well as Iranian News. I think he even actually has a show on Russia Today where essentially all he is the anti-liberal former Labour voter and spewing as much bile and vitriol as he can about Labour, because George Galloway has an axe to grind against Labour. He hated the fact that he was thrown out. He had huge delusions of grandeur, thinking that he was far more important in the Labour Party than he was, and thinking that he could challenge at the time Tony Blair, which again was fanciful. But again, he's stuck around and he's not even been a good MP when he's got elected and done things like this. He has been actively, so bad against the constituencies where he's been in and he's been elected. He hasn't been much use. Like I say, this is a guy who earns at least over 80,000 a year. Working for Russia Today. And he's an absolutely god-awful, terrible person. In fact, we might even watch maybe some George Galloway videos later if you really want to. And like I say, for those of us who's joining today, welcome again. Good morning to the Good Morning Walk. Unfortunately, due to the weather, it is absolutely tipping it down. And normally, those of you who know, I would be out there in the rain, bringing you the week's news and goings on in the UK. But unfortunately, not only is it raining, it is also scheduled to thunder and some serious thunderstorms. So I don't know. So I do not want to go out there essentially and be a walking lightning rod in the storms. So like I say, this is why, again, studio, like I say, this is not going to be, obviously, it's not the usual format for the Good Morning Walk. So I do understand that from people. Like I say, this is just a one-off for this time. Could have done this on a treadmill. I don't own a treadmill, unfortunately. I did think about it. And I did have an exercise bike, but I loaned it to someone at the start of the pandemic because they were literally walking in circles because they lived in Sheffield city centre, and they felt they were a bit more boxed in. So I loaned them my my bike just to just to have that pony figurine. I don't really have anything like that, unfortunately. I've got this. I don't know if that helps. It's my little cataphract, my little Byzantine knight. I don't know if that helps. Or we've got we've got, for those of you into AOS, we've got Balloon Boy from Cadron Overlords. Like I say, you know, we'll show you off. But there is a way we will be able to show you some ponies later on. But yeah. So overall, the big disappointing thing is, as you can see, Labour were 35.3 and the Conservatives were 34.4. And of course, George Galloway coming in at 21.9. That is not a small amount of votes. And it's really difficult to tell where these votes came from. It is really difficult to tell where these votes came from. We know Galloway ran a campaign that was pretty much anti-Starmer, saying that if you vote for me, you know, you're voting because you don't like Starmer. You're basically saying we want Starmer out. He appealed to very much the Muslim community out in Batley and Spen, saying that Labour were ignoring them. He also heavily ran on the fact that saying that, you know, to the Muslim community, that your children are being indoctrinated into an LGBT lifestyle, which again is completely and utterly wrong. That is not what is happening. But that's the campaign he ran, and unfortunately, it seems to have worked. Now, we do not know where these votes would normally go. We don't know if these votes would have normally gone to Labour. We don't know if Galloway also ended up pulling votes away from the Conservatives. We don't know. What is good and what is interesting to note, however, is that even though, as you can see, the Lib Dems were here, there were a lot of Lib Dems out there who were specifically saying, do not vote for the Lib Dem candidate, vote for the Labour candidate. Because just like the Chesham and Amersham by-election recently, this election is also being seen as a test to see if a progressive alliance can work. And again, we don't know if the reason the Lib Dems came in fourth is because they went and voted for Labour. Like I say, at the moment, we've got a lot of information, but we don't have enough information yet. I think it's going to take a lot more digging and maybe 2 or 3 weeks more before we find out what these numbers really mean. Because if it turns out the Lib Dems are the ones that saved Labour here, like they were the ones who squeaked it over the line for them, then fantastic. I've always been very much in favour of a progressive alliance. I think one could work. I think that it's possible and it's doable, But at the end of the day, that Progressive Alliance has to have goals, and it has to have a purpose behind it. So there is really a hard point here to this. I really am happy that they won. Obviously, this is a good victory for Labour, and I'm happy that they won. And I really am happy that they won. But 300 votes in it, while it is a victory, we cannot deny that this was a very, very close victory. And there are a lot of people out there going, oh, well, this is the end of the Conservatives demolishing the Red Wall. Maybe. I'm not 100% sure. But we'll have to see. And now, for those of you because I do realize this is the morning walk, so here's some ponies for you. There you go. So while I can't bring you ponies in person, here's some video of ponies. So I thought, here's some ponies in a paddling pool. So we're gonna have some. We're gonna at least have some ponies on the Good Morning Walk. We are not going to leave you abandoned for your lack of ponies. And what's disappointing as well is that I really did want to get out because there had been a new pony born. Literally on Tuesday, I walked past and it wasn't there. And then Wednesday morning when I went past, I went, oh, you're new. To a point where it was literally still all a bit slimy, shall we say. So, yeah. So, ultimately, this is, it's an incredibly good win for Labour. I can't cut it either way, but it is also an incredibly close win. We're literally talking like this is the edge, and you've literally just hanging on there by like your finger. You've got your finger just hanging on for dear life. But we've also got some more interesting news because Galloway is now apparently trying to get the results set aside by the courts. So George Galloway is apparently openly openly going to try and challenge this result in court, even though, again, of course, he didn't win. He's trying to everything he can just to make sure that Labour don't win. Now, he's apparently his motion for challenging on this is that something was said about him during the campaign, or citing false statements made about him during the campaign. And we don't know how that's going to go. I don't think he's got a chance in heck of doing it. But, you know, if there's anything you know about George Galloway, he loves to have so just the ponies playing in the pool. Then you know that Galloway's anything but one for wanting to have some interesting times. Yeah, yeah. You are right there, Chris. What would Giuliani be doing? Giuliani, sorry. What would Giuliani doing now? He's being just doing that. Yeah. That's true. So this is it's an interesting time, of course, because while this has bought Keir Starmer some breathing room, and of course, at the moment, we aren't expecting any more by-elections to happen. Like I say, we've had 3 since the last general election. Then there's normally about 1 on average for by-elections. So we've had, to be honest, in such a short amount of time, quite a lot of by-elections. So we are definitely going to see Galloway do this. Yeah. Substitute coffee for substitute ponies, true. Like I say, unfortunately, is like I say, it's absolutely tipping it down at the moment. So, and like I say, we are expecting thunder and lightning storms, or so quite severe thunderstorms. So the reason why I didn't want to go out today is because, well, I didn't want to be, you know, getting the Darwin Award for going out there with my phone. Like I say, it's a lifelong ambition of mine not to win a Darwin Award. Like I say, there you go. So overall, what's the takeaway from this? What moves on from this? Well, Starmer has almost certainly bought himself some time. He's bought himself some significant breathing room in how this is going to happen. But there's still possibilities he might be challenged. If a challenge does happen, I'd much prefer it to be sooner rather than later. We are going to see some very interesting times ahead, definitely, if there is a challenge. And of course, if Starmer manages to see off the challenge, if he doesn't manage to see off the challenge, there's going to be, you know, who stands? Because again, if there is a leadership challenge, the question always has to be, well, who do you put forward? Who's the person who stands for it? We generally don't know. It's all up in the air. There are people going around and saying that his shadow minister, or his shadow deputy, Annalisa Dodds, would be a good replacement for him. But she has already come out and said that she has no interest in currently doing that. Someone just said John Bercow. John Bercow, first of all, isn't an MP, so he can't actually stand. And I think you have to have been a paid-up Labour member for at least a year and be an MP. And at the moment, there's no opportunities for him to stand and be an MP. Like I say, this is why I say at the moment there is no one who can actually stand, because if you've got to choose someone, it's got to be someone in the Labour Party. And even after, and like I say, Starmer has had a very hard job. Let's not mince words, because he's had to combine the Corbyns, the left, and the Labour right and centrists into one united party. And I've said this before, and I said it under Corbyn. We can't have division. We have to be focused on the next general election being to defeat the Tories. That should be our main and priority goal. And one of the ways we can do that is especially putting out some really, really good progressive policies, because we know, and we have seen in the polls, that progressive policies vote really, really good for this type of thing. And Hanks just brought it up here about needing a leader who attacks Boris and goes after the cronyism and his gang of scammers. I agree, and Starmer is doing a fantastic job doing that. He is going after Boris in a really, really good way in PMQs. Like I say, last Wednesday's performance in at Prime Minister's Question Times, where he went after him and were asking all those questions about the Matt Hancock stuff, the Matt Hancock affair, and of course the connections that she had to her brother receiving PPE contracts. Like I say, I think he's going after it really, really good. The big problem is that there needs to be more communication about what Starmer and the other people in the Labour Party are going after Boris for. Because the more they bring up to light and the more they bring up the videos of Boris Johnson dodging questions about cronyism, corruption, but him and his front bench are blatantly involved in, the more that does good, and the more that will damage Boris's chances in places down south. Like I say, in the Amersham by-election down south, traditional traditional Tory stronghold, has been so for almost 100 years, won by the Lib Dems, because there were a lot of Conservative voters who did not want to vote for Boris Johnson because they don't like him. There were even people out there who were apologizing to people who were campaigning for Labour and the Lib Dems because they were still going to vote for the Conservatives. They were just openly apologizing to them on the doorstep, saying, yeah, I know they're really corrupt, but I'm still going to vote for them. But they did win. They did win down there. So that was a fantastic win for, for the Lib Dems. Batley and Spen has been I can't call it a good win, but it was certainly a win. I'm going to have to take my hat off for a minute there because it's heavy. But yeah, it was a good win and a win nevertheless. And like I say, but of course, this wouldn't be a Good Morning Walk without having a look to see what GB News has had to say. So let's go over to GB News, because I'm sure GB News, GB News has some absolutely fantastic takes on this by-election win for Labour. And of course, also, if you haven't heard the news, getting less viewers on TV than the Welsh version of Paw Patrol, getting around 36,000 views on TV. A national news program is getting less than 36,000 views. Absolutely fantastic news. But as I've said before, GB News is here to stay. There's a lot of people saying that it won't last a year. There's a lot of people saying it won't last 3 years. But I'll tell you this now: GB News is here to stay. There has been far too much money, far too much money invested in GB News for it to fail. So, let's see. I'm sure they had one somewhere. Oh, they had Jo Cox's husband. Oh, why did you go on here? Like, I'm. You should not have gone on here, my friend. You should have absolutely not gone on GB News. I'm sorry, I disagree with his decision to go on GB News. He should not have gone on GB News, but we'll watch it anyway.
We're joined now by Jo Cox's husband, Brendan. Brendan, hi. I felt quite emotional watching that speech. How did you feel?
No, you didn't feel emotional. You did not feel emotional at all. You absolute ghoul. I'm sorry, but she did not feel emotional at all. If this had been a Conservative win, she'd be smiling from the rafters. She'd be smiling from the rafters on this one. And to Jo Cox's husband, I'm sorry, but you should not have gone on GB News. I'm sorry. This is... No, he should have absolutely not gone on GB News. Well, I don't know. It depends what he says, because actually he actually has a really good opportunity here to knock GB News around a bit. Let's see if he takes that opportunity. If he does take that opportunity, okay, I'll be quite happy about that. But I have a feeling that this is going to be quite a softball interview, if anything, and they're not going to ask any, shall we say, searching questions.
Both tired and emotional. Yes, it was early in the morning, and the kids weren't up yet. But we had a video call with her later on to wish her congratulations. And yeah, I mean, it was an incredibly proud moment for all of us. Of course, you know, the fact that she won is the sort of crowning element of it, but the reality is, whether she had won or lost, the bravery in putting yourself forward in a really difficult environment in a pretty brutal campaign. She campaigned positively throughout, and I think, as I said, me and the kids, whether she had won.
Yeah, I have to give her that. Like I said, I said at the beginning, I have to give her props. Like I say, for doing what she did. So I am generally really happy about that she did stand. However, like I say, there were some bad optics wise that would probably hit Labour afterwards about being, well, the only reason you won was because you had Jo Cox's sister, or if they'd lost, see, Labour can't even win when Jo Cox's sister is standing for them. Now, ultimately, yes, good on her for standing. Fantastic result probably for her and her family. Good on her for doing so. She did run a very positive campaign. I'll give them that. And like I say, just squeaked a 300 vote win. Like I say, it's not the best win ever, but still, at the end of the day, a win is a win. And like I say, I think there's got to be a lot of searching, as I said at the beginning when we were looking over those results. Where did these votes come from? If they came from the Lib Dems, and that's why the Lib Dems had such a small vote percentage, fantastic. It's a second proof that a progressive alliance can work, and that's something that Labour should actively seek towards doing. So, like I say, fingers crossed for that going forward. Like I say, I still think there is a lot of work to do, but if that is the case, then the Lib Dems have proved that they can win if they go forward for a progressive alliance. Because essentially what needs to happen is Labour goes, okay, that southern wall area, we're not even going to run any candidates. Fantastic. And then the Lib Dems in the north should go, we're not going to run any candidates in the north. And then what can happen is that the Lib Dems can focus all their resources on smashing the blue wall, and then the Labour can focus on regaining their red wall seats. Because remember, a lot of those red wall seats were very, very narrow wins for those Conservatives. They were only about 2,000 to 3,000, points in that swing. They weren't big enough swings to really be comfortable, and a lot of those Conservative MPs were hoping at the local election times that they would see significant swings at a local council election level as well. And of course, that didn't happen. Like I say, Labour did not lose any significant Labour-held councils where there were new Conservative MPs to Conservatives. And while there were maybe like one or two, these were areas where they had won before, so it was not surprising for them to win those areas. So please call it the blue fence to make it sound different from the red wall. Okay, I'll remember that for the future. But anyway, let's see what else he had to say on this.
Won or lost, would have been just as proud of her.
Indeed, Auntie Kim, I guess she had to put up with what she called a nasty circus in her home. It must have been pretty tough for you, and indeed for the kids, to witness that.
Yeah, I mean, the kids weren't close to the detail of it at all, and they were excited that that Kim was standing. But I think what the results showed, particularly on the far right and the extreme right, they all lost their deposits. They all got 0.0% or something, really tiny voting percentages, and it shows once again that the people of Batley and Spen, of course, they have the differences and they have the disagreements, but there is a sort of a deep decency in whether you are voting Conservative or Labour in this election. That sense of decency and ability to have a debate and to have disagreements and to have a passionate debate about the future of the community shouldn't lead to the sort of insults and abuse that some of the fringe candidates tried to throw into the debate, but ultimately unsuccessfully.
Jo's motto was more in common. Her legacy was that we have more.
So ultimately, I'm really happy. Yeah, I'm really happy that like I say, Labour did win. I think it was a mistake for the husband of Jo Cox to go on GB News, where they are actively sowing division, engaging in ridiculous culture war politics. You know, there is some, you know, very, very, shall we say, dodgy presenters on there who have said some very, very outrageous things just to get views and clicks on here. Now, ultimately, I am sort of happy that he went on there, but I think he should be taking a lot more bigger swings at GB News, given the fact that they are, again, goes against her motto that we have more unites us than divides us. Again, not a good look to be on GB News. I think this should have been an interview that he should have absolutely passed on. But, you know, not my decision to make, but one I would have definitely advised him against doing. So we'll just go now to, because there was another one.
In the
So
studio, we're joined.
Ken Livingstone on this. Like I say, I haven't watched this before, so I don't know what he's got to say on this. But just to let you know, like I say, the Good Morning Walk is only an hour. So what we will do is we will watch this, and then we will go on onto George Galloway, and we will watch his loser video, and we will laugh at him for losing, because I think he deserves it, because he is a man who is politically irrelevant, but likes to stick his nose in and likes to make noise while essentially throwing up over everyone, and then playing to the crowd saying, "Oh, look, don't I deserve for spewing all this nonsense about it?" But anyway, well, let's see what Ken Livingstone's got to say on this.
Joined by former Labour Mayor of London, Ken Livingstone. Good morning to you.
Morning.
Just give us your reaction, and also that of the parties to this win.
Well, I was fearing Labour was going to lose, and that was the predominant view, I think, about everyone. And if you actually look, if you take the Labour vote and George Galloway's vote, it's 58%. This is a traditional Labour seat. And of course, if George Galloway hadn't been standing, we'd have had a much bigger majority. And I also think that Keir Starmer is slowly coming over to people as a potentially very good Prime Minister. It's been very difficult for him because this entire last 15 months, it's all been about the virus and the death toll. It's been very difficult for the leader of an opposition party to get a lot of coverage and establish themselves. But yeah, I have to say, the thing that defines Keir Starmer for me is when he first got selected to stand as a Labour candidate, virtually the first thing he did, he came up to see me at my house and have a chat and get my advice on what to do. So Keir Starmer is a genuine Labour man. And I think he has a real chance of winning the next general election. What's obvious about this by-election and all the others is now people change their mind at the last minute. When I came into politics,
like I say again, can't really disagree with what he's got to say there. I think Starmer will. The more the pandemic eases, I think the more he will actually start to get and knock some heads together. I think he will make some very, very significant wins when he goes into it. But my feeling for the next general election, I've said before, Boris Johnson is walking a very, very tight tightrope, where the more he appeals to the red wall voters, the less he appeals to his southern base, and the more he appeals to his southern base, the less he appeals to his northern base. So I think there is a very interesting situation where if the Lib Dems can capitalize and get a progressive alliance going, that the Lib Dems could capitalize and win seats in the blue fence and help to break that down. I also think that, again, if Keir Starmer can generally get his act together and get some good policies going, then I think Labour stand a really good chance of re-winning a lot of those red wall seats, because I've said before, Labour cannot win without those seats in the north. They just can't. Mathematically and numbers wise, they just can't do it. So they do need to re-win those seats. And I think if a progressive alliance does go ahead and they achieve that, then fantastic. I think you will see a complete potential collapse of the Conservative Party. They could go into a minority and be a potential and become the third party, essentially, because Boris Johnson has engaged in so much corruption and so much disaster because of the coronavirus that no one wants to vote for him. So there is a very serious reality that could happen. The other way, of course, is that if it doesn't happen, I think that Labour will regain some seats in the north. I think the Lib Dems will gain some seats in the blue fence area down in the south. And I think that we are looking at a hung parliament. In my opinion, at the moment, I think we are looking at a hung parliament as a result for the next general election. And that opens up so many possibilities. So many possibilities of what could potentially happen. But we'll have to see. And like I say, I think Ken Livingstone here, he is right. A lot of people did not think that they were going to win. Like I say, and this was very much this was very, very much a win, and I'm really happy we won, but this was a win where every single vote counts. And it just goes to show you what I've said before about going out and getting out to vote, because a lot of people still do not get out and vote. And I've said this before, if honestly, if all the people in the UK who didn't vote got out and vote and randomly voted, I don't know, for the Greens, like we'd have a Green majority parliament. That's how much it is. That's how much sway non-voters have in this country, that if they actually got up and voted, they could actually do something. So we are in like I say, a very, very interesting time. And like I say, the next general election is 3 years away at this point. But we are going to have to see. We are going to have to see what happens in those 3 years' time, because obviously we're going to have more impacts from Brexit, and this time they can't blame. They can't blame the coronavirus, because that's going to be long and gone. because we're going to be suffering from actually we're going to be suffering from the ABCs. First of all, the A, we're going to be suffering from austerity. We know austerity is what broke this country in the first place. The Conservatives have been in power for over the past 15 years, and they have pursued a very rigorous and aggressive policy of austerity that has stripped away not only the defences of the NHS, which caused and added to the coronavirus, they have stripped away money for education, to which they even released a report which said, yeah, your policies over the last 15 years have done nothing to help the working class of this country. And they even tried to invoke the culture wars, where they said, oh, it's the white working class that have suffered because apparently they're being taught, about white guilt and stuff like that. And again, ask any teacher. They don't have time to teach that nonsense. They're too busy trying to teach English, maths, and science. Their jobs of what they're meant to do. And of course, they have no evidence, of course, in the report that was what was going on. But they tried to hide their own failings under the guise of culture war. And this is what we're going to see, especially more going forward. They, like I say, they failed on education. They failed on children's education. They failed when even trying to provide catch-up for children on education. The money that they've given is barely a drop in the ocean. It's the equivalent to essentially getting every child about £100. That's nothing. And when you look at other countries that have also gone down this route as well, namely the Netherlands, their funding that they have given to this, they've taken this seriously because, again, this is about future investment, and we'll get into why in a moment. In terms of future investment, each child in the Netherlands is getting over £2,500. That is serious investment in the future of this country. Why does it matter so much that ours are only getting £100? Because this is going to have serious consequences on their education. It is going to lead to over 350 billion in lost wages for those children. And it is going to lead to over 100 million in the loss of tax revenue. So if, quote, Boris Johnson is serious about levelling up, then why isn't he investing in these children's futures? Oh, thank you very much, David Falconer. Thank you very much for your support there. A glimmer of hope, indeed. Like I say, that's what we're all about on this channel. Things may often be looked down and gloomy from time to time, but you know what? There's always a glimmer of hope somewhere. And always you've got to keep on fighting, and you've got to be engaged. I've been an advocate for this since day one of starting this channel. You've got to be engaged. You've got to be writing to your MP. Even if your MP is a Conservative, write to them. So that's what we're all about. So, like I say, time now to laugh at George Galloway. Because I think he deserves to be laughed at. Share audio. There we go. So this is George Galloway. Quite frankly, an out and out distraction essentially to the real news in all of this. But of course, this is George Galloway, who's live from the Count in Batley and Spen. Let's laugh at him for losing, because he deserves it. He's not a nice guy, and to be honest, I am thinking of in the future maybe covering George Galloway on one of our Wednesday talks, or shall we say Wednesday evening live streams. But it's going to be fun, shall we say, if we do decide to cover all Georgie here. So, Georgie Pudding and Pie ran in Batley and Spen and ended up crying. I tried to make it rhyme, but it didn't fit. Anyway, we'll cover this then.
The result of this election cannot stand. And
why can't it stand? That's the first question.
we will take whatever legal measures are necessary to have that result set aside.
So he's so angry. He's so angry at Labour winning. Oh, thank you very much, Nico, there. Thank you very much for your support there. He's so angry at Labour winning because his entire modus operandi here was meant to be that he would win and then he could trounce Keir Starmer. And like I say, George Galloway has an axe to grind against Labour because he always hated the fact that he was tossed out of the party. And quite frankly, I'm glad he was tossed out of the party. He's a terrible person. And it doesn't matter that this guy occasionally talks about left things, again, which I would probably agree with him. The fact is that he's an absolutely awful person. Like I say, even a broken clock can be right twice a day. But this is George Galloway, who actively broke the clock in the first place and enjoys breaking the clock. So let's continue. Let's find out why he's bringing a legal challenge against this. But here we go.
There are multiple reasons, not all of which I'll have time to go into now.
Oh, multiple reasons. Multiple reasons, George, and you're not going to tell us. What an absolute coward. I'm sorry, what an absolute coward. What an absolute excuse for you not winning. You are no better than Donald Trump at this moment, George Galloway. You are trying to make excuses for your loss because this was a guy who was running on his ticket that he was going to win, that somehow he would ride the way to victory, that he would pull all this out and he would win. And now he is now trying to do this. Oh, Daily Blaze, Daily Blase. Yeah, George Galloway is a grifter. He is an absolute grifter when it comes to this. So no one should have any sympathy for this because this is what he does. And this is what he goes and does on his program for Russia Today. You know, when he takes Putin's money, he is actively trying to basically go, oh, the left in the UK are bad. Look, here's George Galloway to reinforce that point. Because that's what Russia Today is about, basically trying to downplay the fact that things are really bad in Russia, but, you know, things are really, really bad in Europe when they're not. Again, like I say, I think, you know what, this Wednesday, we're going to cover George Galloway because he deserves it. He really does deserve it. But anyway, we'll continue with this.
Detail. But the tin hat was put on the Banana Republic exercise that has been called this parliamentary by-election by the returning officer's refusal to grant a recount when the margin of victory was less than 1%. The law is very clear. I've read it. I may even have helped to write it.
They had a recount
should be granted by the returning officer when the margin is less than 1%,
they had a recount
unless that request is unreasonable. In all the
they recounted batches.
The last thing
the Conservatives called for a batch recount, and they had them. That's why it was. This why these results weren't called until early in the morning.
Kirk leaves. Not even enough chairs for the people in the count to sit on. Not even a cup of coffee after 4 a.m. But these are, of course, a mere bagatelle compared to the egregious and serious and election altering antics of the banana republic that is the Kirklees Labour controlled council.
What? What? What on earth? What on earth is he talking about? That's absolute nonsense. He's claiming election fraud with no evidence of election fraud. How very Trumpian of him. And then he's saying that there wasn't a recount when there was a recount, because again, there are two types of recount we have in the UK. We have a complete recount where we recount every single vote. We also have what are called batch recounts, which is what was happened in the Batley and Spen by-election. The Conservatives called for certain constituencies' votes in certain areas to be recounted because, not surprisingly, they called in the Conservative areas to be recounted. So there was a recount, George. You're not being honest about it, but there you go. And of course, claiming election fraud, that's irresponsible. That is absolutely irresponsible. I'm sorry, but that is irresponsible. You should not be allowed to get away with that. And if he launches a legal challenge, he's going to be absolutely laughed out of court. Just like Trump has been out over in the US. And oh, by the way, this is going to add to his grift because he will probably have some sort of fundraiser for this. And of course, he'll just pocket all the money and say, you know, oh, I've launched my legal challenge. It wasn't, and then there'll be no record of it. I stand to be, corrected, but this man's a grifter. I wouldn't put it past him to do that.
The most obvious is the decision by Kirklees Council 3 days before
oh, please, Monster Raving Loony Party. You can see the guy in the back there with the big bunting in the back there. That's the Monster Raving Loony Party. If this guy has any awareness about him, he'll just go and stand next to that front van there and just start waving to the camera and just make George Galloway look like a complete fool. But yeah, I do hope he starts doing that. But yeah, that guy back there in the white and the big rosette, Monster Raving Loony Party, a fantastic product of our electoral system. Maybe, I think, yeah, tell you what, next, this coming Wednesday, not only will we cover George Galloway, but as a palate cleanser, we'll drop in to Screaming Lord Such and pay him a visit for the Monster Raving Loony Party. That sounds like a plan. That sounds like a plan.
polling day to remove virtually all of our posters from the lampposts throughout the constituency, incurring a significant public expense in a council that claims to be too cash-strapped to fill in the potholes, the size of which is such that you could lie down and sleep in them.
So he is claiming that Kirklees Council took down his banners. Now they did, because the places where some of his banners were placed were not meant to be used as polling aids. You can only use certain areas. Kirklees Council were very clear about that. George Galloway should know about that because that's part of the election rules. When an election opens, you have to go, you and your team and your candidate have to go before the election officer, and he reads the rules and he passes over to you the booking of what happened. This is what you're allowed to do. He reads and makes sure you know about that. And also, by the way, this is another false claim because George Galloway had spent hundreds of thousands of pounds on huge banners of his face up and all over around Batley and Spen. So he can't really complain about taking down a single board, which is, I think, is what he's talking about. It was a single board. Again, like I say, if you went to Batley and Spen just a few, like say last week, you would not be able to escape this guy's face.
Coincidentally or not, on the very day that Kirklees Council began taking down our posters, Labour issued a leaflet claiming that our campaign was running out of steam. So the voters read that we were running out of steam just as our visible posters were being taken from the Kirklees Council.
Any evidence of that, George? You're going to produce that Labour?
I did help write the law, which lays out very clearly the requirement for posters on lampposts. This law was broken by...
No, you broke the law. You were the one who put it there because you wanted to play the victim card. You again, this is George Galloway's part of the grift. He knows the laws and he knows how we can skirt around it. And then he also can know that when they get taken out by that, they can just skirt around the laws and he can play the victim. Like I say, I really do wish, you can see in the background, just to my right, this side of the screen, you can see the Monster Raving Loony Party, and I wish they'd had self-awareness to be standing in the background more, because I think it would make Galloway look an even bigger fool than he already is, spouting this nonsense, claiming electoral fraud. Again, this is absolute sheer madness of what he's doing and what he's engaging in. Yeah. Daily Blars. Yeah. I've heard that rumor too. There are apparently some Labour activists campaigning for George Galloway. I've heard that. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. But quite frankly, they were fools for doing so. Because I think what's going to turn out, if that turns out to be true, you will find out that these people are probably hardcore Corbyn supporters and essentially wanted to embarrass George Galloway. Not George Galloway. Wanted to embarrass Keir Starmer and wanted Starmer out of the party. And if you want Keir Starmer out of the party, there are legitimate ways to do that. But there you go.
Kirklees Council. And they've preferred instead to implement what they said was their policy.
And I do like his first live comment has been, "You lost, get over it. Your campaign was disgusting, and I'm no Starmer fan." I do like the fact. I do like that. I do like that fact. That's the first comment he had. I do like that fact. Oh, and we've got someone in the Twitch chat saying hello. So hello. We're also like I say, we're also live streaming today on Twitch as well. So hello to you. But yeah, Galloway doing what he's doing here is completely irresponsible. He's claiming electoral fraud, saying he's going to take this to court. Quite frankly, he doesn't have a leg to stand on. It's just more victimhood for him to blame. And I'm sure he will also go on to do a show on Russia Today about how he was done a bad. Maybe if he does it in time for next Wednesday, we'll cover him again.
Policy, a policy which was applied only to our posters and not to anyone else's. The law is very clear that election material must have an imprint. That imprint must be visible. It makes absolutely no reference to the size of the font. I'm not making this up. The size of the font of the imprint on the posters. Taking down thousands of our election posters, simultaneously with describing us as having run out of steam, is a significant part of the...
Can you provide evidence of that leaflet? You'd think, by the way, George Galloway, not wanting to miss a beat, would actually have the leaflet and read it out, but of course he's not. And of course he's annoyed that some of his election stuff got taken down when he was on purpose breaking the rules. But there you go.
The legal action that we will begin. I was going to say at first light, but when the lawyers get into the office, which isn't, of course, the same thing. But it's not the only reason. The most
pathetic, absolutely pathetic. You lost George Galloway. You're absolutely pathetic that you're now trying to launch a legal challenge over this, over stuff that is blatantly not true. There was a recount. It was called a batch recount. It was asked for by the Conservatives. It was done. And then the election returning officer said that there wasn't needed for a full recount because they just had a batch recount. Fulfills everything that they need to do. Oh, thank you very much. Beat Brigade 07. Thank you very much for that. Obviously coming from Twitch chat, where does Galloway line up politically? He's a grifter, pure and simple. Galloway is an absolute grifter. Brief history, if you don't know who this guy is. George Galloway was once an MP for the Labour Party. He was thrown out for bringing disrepute for the party, and ever since then, he's had an axe to grind against Labour and uses every single opportunity he can do to try and essentially embarrass Labour. He is also a multimedia figure that predominantly uses Russia Today as a platform to say how bad Britain is. That's basically where he is. So anyway, back to here.
egregious of multiple false statements about a candidate in an election was the one made by the Labour candidate, in her own words, saw her lips move. She did it on camera. And the false statement that she then made was repeated ad nauseum in every part of the media. Namely, that when she was harassed outside the Al Madina Mosque, I stood laughing on the other side of the road.
There's video footage of you there doing it, and there are numerous witnesses that have corroborated her saying that. George Galloway, ladies and gentlemen, lying through his teeth again. Anyway, we're going to speed this up because he's talking so slow.
The truth is, as photographic and video evidence will prove, I was never on the other side of the road. I was on the same side of the road as the Labour candidate was. I was 100 yards away and not laughing. Yet this
You- There's, again, like I say, this is just so ridiculous false. I can't believe he's going to try and do a technicality. Haha! I was not on the other side of the road. I was, in fact, on the same side of the road. Ha Nico De Smith, why does this all matter? Because essentially, he is going to try and use this as evidence to try and essentially try and get the result of this election overturned. He's essentially throwing a Trump-like temper tantrum to essentially try and get away with it. Yeah, he's basically trying to make up excuses for why he lost. He's calling the local council a banana republic. He's saying that they interfered. He's saying that, oh, they took down one of my posters. And again, it was one poster on a lamppost. Again, if you pass through Batley and Spend another week, and again, there are numerous photos of George Galloway in huge posters of his face on saying, you know, vote for me. I don't think one tiny board being taken off a lamppost because it didn't have a imprint of the party that put it up. You know, don't really think that made too much of a difference there, George. He then also, of course, is claiming about the harassment that potentially he may have very well set up. And yes, he was there laughing. Doesn't matter what side of the street he was on, but he was there laughing. Because again, there is, video evidence of him doing that, and other people are there corroborating that he was there laughing at the Labour candidate while she was being harassed. Like I say, this is going to get thrown out so fast, and then he's just going to claim, ha, see, the establishment is fighting against me. And again, he continues his grift.
This false statement, which I believe turned the tide in the election, was very damaging to us, was completely false, and I believe deliberately so. It was a lie that traveled around the world before the truth could get its trousers on.
Oh, please don't quote Terry Pratchett. Please don't quote Terry Pratchett on this. Please don't quote Terry Pratchett on this. You absolute cretin, George Galloway. You absolute cretin. Anyway, I've had enough of this guy. I've had enough. Yeah, because he's just speaking it out and outright. There will be almost certainly a legal challenge, but he will lose because, again, he hasn't got a leg to stand on. Quite frankly, George Galloway will be fine. And he will go back to Russia Today to spout his nonsense while he gets paid an exorbitant amount of fees to essentially do that. Like I say, George Galloway can just go away. And I do like the fact I do like the fact there are people in his live chat that responded to this saying how much of a sore loser he is and that what he's saying is wrong. Because George Galloway had been saying for weeks that he was going to win this seat and that this would be an easy win for him. So, anyway, thank you for joining me on this good morning walk indoors. Like I say, it is absolutely tipping it down. Normally, I would be out. That's like I say, as you know, I do have an umbrella. I am prepared for that, but unfortunately, there are thunderstorms predicted as well. And like I say, I did not want to be walking around holding a mobile phone up while there might be thunder and lightning happening. Because, like I say, don't want to win particularly a Darwin Award for that. So, thank you all for joining me as always for this wonderful Saturday morning walk. Well, not walk, but you know, like I say, normal walking will be resumed next week. Like I say, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button on your way out. And of course, down below, pardon me, there are links to my Patreon page, as well as a one-off donation link called Buy Me a Coffee, where you can buy me a coffee. And thank you very much to all the people who do support me that way and have supported me on today's channel today. And like I say, thank you for joining us. Do have an absolutely fantastic weekend. As always, if you can't be safe, be sensible. Go out. Well, I say go out and enjoy yourselves, but I don't think so today. Like I say, I think it's raining all day today, as well as like thunder and lightning storms. So do go out and enjoy yourself as always. Go out, be safe, be sensible, and as always, we'll see you all next weekend for another